Okay, welcome everybody to the Parks, Library, and Arts Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 committee meeting. We have a handful of things to talk about today. Present are Chair Van Rees, Bradford, Hager, Hancock, Hauser, and Henderson. And yes, okay. So first up, Resolution RS 2021-1070 appropriates a total of $1,273,580 from Nashville Public Library to various nonprofit organizations for the provision of a free and high-quality after-school programs through the library's Nashville After Zone Alliance program. Do you have a motion? Mr. Syracuse has joined us, thank you. And a second.
Second.
Any discussion or, yes?
Some questions, please. So I saw in our legislative analysis the organizations to which this funding would be appropriated. And can you explain, I think some of us colleagues are familiar with kind of NASA of the past and how that was administered. And can you sort of explain if there has been a transition, and if so, are these activities happening at these disparate sites associated with these nonprofits, and how did you choose these nonprofits? Like what kind of, I know we talk about this in Metro a lot, about making sure that nonprofits are well managed, especially important when people work with children. Can you just kind of speak to that, please?
Sure.
That's a lot of questions in one, but.
I have a whole crew with me tonight,
Yeah.
and Anna is in charge of the Nashville After Zone Alliance, so Anna can speak to that.
Yes, thank you for your question. So we have been appropriating these funds for now 12th year, but we have been doing it through a contract. We had another nonprofit who was acting as our implementing partner, YMCA most recently, but others previously. So we got out of the contract and we're now directly managing the grant. It saves us about 7% of indirect cost. Also, it's more accountable way of managing these funds. To your question about how we select these nonprofits, first of all, many of them are returning partners, so they have been providing these programs for many years now, many of them over 5 years. So we kind of built those relationships, and then they have to adhere to certain standards. We just don't only give them money, but NASA's role is also making sure that programs are of high quality. So there is mandatory training, there is mandatory quality assessment, and all of that is part of their Metro contract. So throughout the year, the staff that we're going to hire soon, that we got approved this year, they will have the function to oversee the quality of those programs and the performance. We have set very rigorous performance indicators for attendance, for quality, for retention of those kids. So none of these programs are drop-in programs. Once you enroll them, they will have to come certain number of days, and then we watch their attendance on a weekly basis. We have a unified system where we track the attendance, and that's our primary indicator, and we're gonna starting from this fall, we're gonna report that to Mayor's office. So the selection is open competition still. It goes on our website. Anyone who wants to apply, they apply, but most of them are returning partners. And then for future, we cultivate relationship through affiliated partnerships. So someone who wants to become a new NASA partner, they will become an affiliated partner, they will get some capacity built, and then they can apply for funding.
Can I ask, just as far as kind of chain of command, because this has come up recently even when, there's kind of there's mayor's office, but there's, an entity like the library with a board or commission, and then you're working with nonprofits and trying to kind of administer, making sure you're getting good quality programs and everything's being done. So the accountability there. So say one of these, and I'm sure they're all wonderful, I'm not, but is not up to that standard. Like, they have some people, I mean, I can see there's so many of them. I guess I just thought that was a long list. And
Yes.
so, hypothetically, this organization, they found that one of their staff members was not speaking to children appropriately. What happens then? Like, who is accountable?
So first of all, the trainings are mandatory for positive youth development. So anyone who works with kids, they will have to pass that training in the beginning of the year. And then we have staff who monitor the programs. And then the program quality trainings and assessment is also another step to verify that things are going well. We also have student survey happening in the middle of the year. Then we get feedback from kids, how they feel about the program and their experience. So we have multiple layers of data collection to kind of check on what's going on. And then we do have a process in place to terminate or put a corrective action plan if the program is not performing to the standards set in their contract. So there are like multiple levels to keep the control. And the chain of command works pretty well because everything is in their contract. Once they're not complying with the contract, we will document the process with corrective action plan.
Yeah, I think if anything, we have more direct control than we've ever had before, and frankly, we are the ones responsible for making sure that it's administered appropriately. And so we've kind of cut out one middle person there, so we have a little bit more oversight.
Yes, and we did have programs that we had to close in the middle of the year. That happened too, because they were not performing to the standard.
I appreciate that. So that is something you have experienced and worked
Yes,
through.
we did. And last year, because programs were virtual, we also had to cut down on the funding for the second semester because they were not able to meet the numbers they committed to, so.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Very helpful information.
Well,
Any other?
mine works through the parks.
Okay.
Okay, they go to the Oliver Community Center, after-school programs.
Yep.
Of course, parks people there help coordinate a lot of it
Okay,
also.
so coordinating with us. Okay.
Yeah, there's this Venn diagram of help for kids, right? It's because the library's surrounded by parks in conjunction with the arts groups. With the schools, it's like everyone's kind of, I think, it's not a matter of too many cooks in the kitchen. It's more hands on deck to be helpful, and so.
By the way, just for your information, Metro Parks is also a recipient of NASA money. They were not in this resolution because they're another Metro department, but we have 6 sites that get NASA funding
Right.
for programming.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
None against, I see. Thank you. All right, RS 2021-1071 appropriates $250,000 through a grant contract by and between Metro Nashville Public Library and the Oasis Center to provide college access services for the Opportunity Now program. There's a motion. All right, anyone want to tell us more about how Opportunity Now and Oasis work together?
Well, this is a recurring several years program, and in this one it helps students get access to financial aid guidance and college prep to go at 11 schools here in Metro. And they're scattered out. It's Antioch, Big Picture School, Cane Ridge, Glencliff, Hillsboro, Hillwood, Overton, Pearl-Cone, Whites Creek, and the Academy at Hickory Hall and the Academy at Old Cockrell. So it's spread around. And then they have, they work with the students about their SATs and all that kind of stuff to help them get prepared to go to college.
In essence, we're a pass-through grant. It just goes through us directly to Oasis for the college program.
Does that preparation include like preparing them to take the ACT or any of those?
It says mentors facilitate the college-going process for approximately 2,000 young people, providing individual assistance with college and career exploration, ACT, SAT preparation, college applications, financial aid, and enrollment.
Because I know that if they try to do that on their own, there's a pretty substantial fee they have to pay. So they're getting that kind of thing at no cost to the child, right?
You got any information?
Yes, council member.
So does this grant have any kind of matching funds, or is it just 100%?
It's 100% straight to them. It has a companion grant for the Mayor's Youth Council that'll be on next month's agenda for a smaller amount.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Can I ask, so the high schools, how are those chosen? And I guess I just want to kind of understand, making sure we're kind of equitably spreading this across so that, you know, all kids in Nashville have access to this. And I would assume in some schools, maybe they have more robust counseling or whatever, or they've already got it covered.
According to their note, it says all students are welcome from all Metro schools. where they may not have a staff member placed. So they're placing staff members in these locations, but all students are eligible to participate.
Was McGavick or Hunter's Lane on that list?
No. Not specifically mentioned, but they did say all schools.
Maplewood, yeah.
Well, I can ask them.
To your knowledge, in this cluster, are they doing it by the kind of the clusters or the school zones? And then do we communicate that this resource is available at this high school?
Yeah, they
And then-
work with all of the guidance counselors at the schools.
Okay. And are kids doing this after hours or weekends? Because if you're at another school where you don't have this resource, it's great that we have this, but how do
How do
those
they get
kids
there?
get to that? And how does that work?
I
Staff
know
is,
that they have bus vouchers opportunity now, and Oasis provides bus vouchers for some folks, so.
Which would be good if it was evening or weekend, but not if
it says
it's.
it's available daily at their school location in order to engage young people in conversation at the school, so that
So they'd probably
they're
have to
doing
miss
it in school.
It's a good question, though. I think that whenever the companion grant comes back up, just to kind of see if there is like a Maplewood or a Hunter's Lane or some other, our ears perk up to
When we get
wherever
it.
the places are.
Would you like me to have Oasis reach out to you?
Yeah, I would just like to
Yeah. so
make sure that all our high school kids are getting this same sort of resource. And I appreciate, we're not gonna decline a
Yeah.
grant for something like this, but I think if we're intentional about like the cross communication, then whatever the other
There's some reason that the 11 schools were selected, and we just
right.
kind of would like to know what those
Sure,
reasons were.
I'll have them reach out to you and get that.
And it's also their feeder middle schools. It's those high
Oh,
schools
good.
and their middle schools.
And Director Oliver, if you would just to our chair, and then she can disperse it as she sees appropriate, please. To your Van Reese, thank you.
Thank you. See no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
None against? Thank you. As always, vibrant discussion. Resolution 2021-1072 approves an application for an American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Metro Nashville Public Library to upgrade the Limitless Library's website to foster educational attainment and equity by providing public library materials and services to all public school students and staff. Have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, let's hear more about this program.
This is Jenny Ellis.
Hi, Jenny.
He did bring everybody.
So, you just want to hear
Yeah.
questions? The Limitless Libraries, hopefully you all know about Limitless Libraries. It's a great program between public schools and public library. And the Limitless Libraries website is a resource that we put together where students can go there and search their own specific school catalog from a search box, so they're not searching the entire library. They get to search their school plus library without all the other schools being involved. We also list all of the databases from the public library and also that the schools purchase together on the website, and they're arranged by age, like elementary school, middle school, high school, and educators. So it's easy to filter and get down to a page that just has the resources that your age group needs.
Appreciate this. So this has been an award-winning program, that's right? Or whether maybe exemplary, I think, I recall. And
Right, this is a national model that many other libraries would like to emulate. It began during Mayor Dean's administration. And basically, we are, in addition to providing the online access, we are running many couriers each day, exchanging books, taking them to the different school libraries. We also do selection for the school library collections as well, and provide buying power through our purchasing so that we get greater discounts for school materials.
great, thank you all.
Fantastic. Curious, is the new art lending library part of that? So if a student said I'd like to have that brought to my school so that I could, because I don't know.
I mean, a student, if they have a library card, should be
Yeah.
able to call it, but I don't think we are delivering
Yeah,
artwork anywhere right now.
I think it's the physical process of moving it in a courier van at this point that we aren't quite there yet.
I used my son's library card to check materials out at Madison Library, so I can test it out on the
You can
artwork.
test it.
Good, that's true.
That's fun. All right, thank you for that information. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Fantastic, none against, approve. RS 2021-1073 accepts a totally outstanding teen advocates for the library grant from the Nashville Public Library Foundation to the Metro Nashville Public Library to advocate for the library among their peers and the community at large, and to represent the library at community events, meetings, and institutions. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Tell us about Total.
Well, this is a program that's going on for about 20 years, and the money pays for a program coordinator and some student mentors who go out to talk to their peers in the libraries and the schools about the library and getting them involved. And they've been doing some really great things. They partnered with Parks to do video programming about to eliminate disparities. They did virtual programming with this last year with several programs with the YMCA, again with Parks. They did a question and answer session about financial aid with the nursing college at Vanderbilt. So we're really getting out there to get, so the kids can get help in areas that they need. And the students are recruited through the metro schools, the private schools. There's online postings with our jobs website, the foundation's website, and other area student councils to get out there to get people to apply to be a mentor.
A few years ago, we received quite a bit of national recognition in this program because of the bullying program that they do. And they do return to the topic of bullying on a pretty regular basis.
How many students are usually involved in it?
We had up to 7. Right now they're looking for 2 to do this year.
What,
That serves kind of as the committee or the council, and then they do
go
the
and
outreach.
do
Then
the
they-
work?
And they go out and work with their peers.
How much is the grant for? It's not written in the caption.
$89,500.
Is that similar to last time? Or?
It's always $89,500.
Isn't that
It's always the
interesting?
same.
Yeah, okay.
Is that the program coordinator? I mean, is
Pretty
that
much.
just-
It was the programmer and a few mentors, but now over the years, as salaries have come up, it's mostly the coordinator and then a couple of the mentors.
And then, so if they do programming, or what funds do they do that with?
Well, the library funds and the foundation, there's more foundation side money.
the
that
foundation
helps with this
supports it
because
as well.
it comes from Bank of America.
Okay.
So they have more on that side. The part that's in the metro part is the $89,500.
I appreciate this so much, because I think
Yeah.
as a parent of a young child, I feel like I was at the library all the time, right? Story times, get the books, go, you have your library card. Council Lady Hunk was speaking to that. But I think kids, when they kind of get into their middle school, their high school, they sort of fall away from being library patrons a little bit. And I was always trying to be like, hey, here's a link, look at this program, don't you want to sign up for this, Mom? Right, because they don't want to hear it from me. So anyway, I appreciate this effort, and thank you all for doing that.
It's the 3D printer stuff. Is
Yeah,
probably
all that stuff was really
pretty
cool. All the
freaking attractive.
digital programming this past year was really excellent, I thought, for that age. So, yeah.
All right, seeing no other questions or concerns, all those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. How about another grant? RS 2021-1074 accepts a grant from one city to the Metro Nashville Parks Department for improvements in Centennial Park and Centennial Park Dog Park. Do I have a motion?
Aye.
Fantastic, seconded. I think, it's okay. I think we know what this is, basically. It's a grant to help with fencing repair, is that correct? And so I think, if there's any other questions about it, we can move forward. Okay, I think he was just making himself available in case there were questions, and since there are none, I will make the executive decision to go call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right. We have one more. All right. This is a bill on second reading, 2021-829 from Syracuse, Bradford, and Roberts. Establishes tree protection and replacement procedures for trees on the properties of certain metro departments. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. Talk to us about this one. Anybody? Talk about Jeff?
All right.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you may recall a few years ago, I was in your role when the NFL draft came to town, and the subsequent cherry incident, and that was a Saturday, and the Parks Committee meeting, of course, was going to be so big we had to move it into the council chambers. At that meeting, I pledged that I would do everything I could to strengthen tree policies on public property. And so this has been an effort that's taken a couple years. And it's largely because I wanted to pull all the stakeholders together, internal to Metro departments, external, our nonprofit partners or whatnot, and work together to craft legislation that everybody was on the same page about. Largely thanks to Rebecca for helping engage all the different departments where urban forestry lives. This is why it's been successful, and I'm proud to be able to bring this to you today. In a nutshell, this codifies the original executive order that Mayor Barry put in place after the Fort Negley incident, and puts this into the code. It ensures transparency. It ensures that we have consistent policies. It creates the tree advisory panel that allows the public to have input when there are the projects that meet the threshold for that. It took a long time because it looked at every single piece of public property across the county. And so there are certain aspects of this ordinance that carves out certain projects because, for example, the meadows and grasslands have their own master plan, things like that. So we spent a lot of time. It's very cohesive, and it allows, again, for community engagement to have a say and whatnot over the trees in our public property. And perhaps also, one of the most important things, it really highlights the wonderful work that all our tree advocates internal to our Metro departments are doing to ensure that our urban canopy is growing and not going in the wrong direction. And so there is a component of this where it's data-driven that ensures that we can see the direction that it's going.
That's great.
Yeah, so appreciate it.
Well, I commend you for the hard work on this. This has been one of your passion projects, and it's a legacy building. And I wanted to, on record, say thank you for all that hard work.
And I'll turn it either to Rebecca or Jim or Tim, and Laura, who have all been wonderful to work with and very helpful to help push this forward. If you guys, did I miss anything? Do you want to add anything?
Thank Rebecca.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And thank you for staying on it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, we're grateful to you for navigating a often tedious process, but we feel like we're in, at least on the park side, feel like we're in better shape because of it.
Councilmember, yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff, for your work on this. As a tree bill person who often works with Ms. Doan and appreciates her work and understands all this interdepartmental stuff, like, it's kind of hard in Metro to kind of get all the stuff together, but when it gets together, it's good work. So thanks to everybody for that. Ms. Doan, I was kind of asked a question over there in Public Works Committee, particular to this bill, and then wanted to ask again, kind of in a different way, because I was reminded, Jeff, when you were, Councilman Syracuse, when you were speaking about kind of Cherry Tree Gate and Riverfront Park, but prior to that, under my chairmanship, we had a really large tree removal at Fort Negley that had created a lot of concern in the community. And I think, whether through the cherry trees at Riverfront or Fort Negley, just a little bit of confusion around tree working group, tree review panel, who is on it, who makes the decisions, how they're communicated. So could you just speak for purposes of this committee, because I think it's particularly relevant, a little more specifically to that. So say today, if brush removal were needed at Fort Negley, with this bill in place, kind of how would that be addressed today under this legislation?
If it was only brush, it would not be addressed by the tree review panel. There are certain triggers for the sizes of trees that need to be removed before it gets to that point. And the amount of inches that are going to be removed. But if they needed to remove 10 10-inch trees, it would trigger as long as it wasn't in an area managed in those 4 exceptions, which I don't believe Fort Negley would fall under. There are some archaeological concerns out at Fort Negley, obviously, so this may not be the best one to talk through this process with. But But, so what would happen is that it would go to the tree review panel. And the tree review panel and tree working group are mainly the same people right now. The representatives, the tree-strong people in the metro departments that are covered in that legislation. And the tree review panel has only had to, we've only had 5 projects come before us in a couple years. So primarily, we meet online. You know, I get an application, we send it out to everybody votes. Usually Laurel has some really good comments, and then it's,
Sure she does.
no, she does. She's like, what are they gonna do about this one? I'm like, well, let's find out. But the tree review panel is designed to review whether or not they meet replacement standards. The tree review panel, if they meet replacement standards, isn't gonna tell a department head no that they can't go ahead with their project. So that's kind of the structure that's been set up with the panel.
And I guess, just to follow on just quickly if I could, I think the concern at Fort Negley was, it was, in my view, a communication issue, right? And what constituted brush, trees of what size, just the expectation of what was going to be done versus what was. So I have no doubt in Metro today, if Parks is doing a project, whether it's like the LA and District 34, and you know, we're thinning out a few trees that we know are ash trees we're gonna lose anyway to improve views, you know, that is very intentional. But I wonder, just kind of on the maintenance end of the spectrum, when something is not like, okay, this is a capital project for parks, right? I assume that that's gonna be dealt with, but just kind of add, can you speak to, or whether through this bill or otherwise, that on that kind of maintenance end of the spectrum, that we're making sure that that communication is really intentional about, you know, this is what you need to do before you know, cut this down or move that, or, you know, because sometimes trees at the smaller end of the spectrum, like redwoods or dogwoods or whatever, they might not seem that important, but maybe they are on the bigger scheme of things. So,
I will say the Fort Negley and the NFL attention has really made it so departments call and say, I'm taking down this, does it qualify?
and who do they call in that?
Usually me.
Okay. Yeah.
But, and I'm sorry, you were.
Well, I guess, again, tree working group, tree review panel, you know, and I think, you know, there's kind of like, this is a big capital project that has to go through these review processes, check these boxes, and then there's just sort of routine maintenance, who do you call, you know, just that stuff that kind of falls through the cracks because it's maybe not sort of systematized.
So most of these projects are on Parks property, I will say, because they're the largest property owner and the largest tree owner in the city. For maintenance projects, certain maintenance projects are exempt from this process. One of our first projects that came through was the moving of the Greenway Bridge at Shelby Bottoms.
I remember that, right.
And that had to be moved. It was
Right.
dangerous, you know, all that, and they were very careful about what trees they took down in order to do it, but it came through this process. I don't think it would go through this process, again, because that's a project that had to happen. They minimize all tree removals because it's expensive, it's dangerous, and it, you know, angers the public. So this is really for those projects where the public is going to be interested, I feel. There was one project that didn't end up coming through, and I think this process also puts departments on notice that they would rather not have it go through the process, and if they could change what they're doing. But Randall called one day and he said, I have to take down, or I'm thinking about taking down these, I forget however many oak trees along this golf course, because in order for me to get the right kind of grass to grow, we can't have this much shade. And so, but that's a project that didn't then go forward. Because, you know, I think you kind of think about it, you're like, well, maybe not so much, but.
Grass, trees, grass, trees.
Well,
Shade, we want shade.
You know, then there are golfers who are like, I want this kind of grass, and so, you know, Parks has all sorts of different
I know,
environments to manage.
lot to balance.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'd like to thank Councilman Syracuse for bringing this forward. I signed on as a co-sponsor. I'm a big fan. Something you mentioned earlier was that 10 1-inch trees wouldn't qualify. Is there a minimum diameter, and would the cherry trees during the NFL draft have been protected if this was in place then?
So there is still an argument out there as to exactly what would have fallen under. Those cherry trees primarily, because we have the 6-inch cap, and you'll know cherry trees are primarily smaller, but with the 90-inch is that we brought this bill down, it would have triggered the cherry trees at the Riverfront Park.
We use that
So
as
it's
a
90 inch total.
Yes.
aggregate inches.
Got it.
We use that as a
Thank
litmus
you.
test.
Yeah.
I like this, thank you. I like litmus tests.
Well, and you know, because I know that Metro Arts is working on some public art, even in front of the Madison Library, right? How that's gonna work with that big tree, and just to make sure that it's gonna need to work with the tree, those types of interdepartmental conversations as well, so it's fascinating.
If art starts cutting trees down, then we've got a
No,
whole.
there's not, it's just
Then we'll cut them
it
artistically.
triggers a conversation, is what I'm saying.
It'll be a bonsai.
There's other stuff that could go, but not the tree. Any other questions on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Before we go, I just wanted to give you an update really quickly. The committee meeting for, the naming committee meeting was postponed today at Parks. So we anticipate that being rescheduled soon. The proposal from myself and the Minority Caucus is to rename Public Square Park Diane Nash Park at 1 Public Square. So no change of address, but to honor Diane Nash in that way. We're anticipating it to go through the naming committee review for suspension of the rules since she's still with us and not dead. That they have to kind of make sure that they talk about that. Then they'll forward it to the Parks Board for conversation, and then it would go to the public for feedback. So I anticipate at our next meeting, if not then the following meeting, we'll have information as to getting the word out to get that public feedback. So that's what's happening on that end.
And so in keeping with the 1 Public Square Park, soon to be something else perhaps, we have still a broken sign on the far pillar facing the river. And I was wondering, is there a plan to?
That would be a question for Metro Parks and Historic to see kind of what the plan is on repairing that. A car came in and hit it, but that was a long time ago.
We can check with the maintenance division and see what the status is on.
Thank you.
I'm not familiar with, but my guess would be is that they're attempting to pursue an insurance claim, which can be time consuming.
We've since planted a tree in its way, and so if someone does it again, they're gonna have to take another tree out, so.
And the tree
Will they have to
legislation
follow
has
the
its-
Also deferred today, I think, was something that had come through this committee, and we had raised Chair Van Rees about private development, kind of dedicating land for purposes of parks, and I think there were 2 of those items on the agenda. Was there is there anything particular to the items on the agenda that required it to be deferred, or it was just
There wasn't a quorum
Oh.
for the park board.
Okay, got it. So those will be back up then a month from now?
They
or
are,
then
as
we'll-
I understand it, what they announced today is that they're going to call a special session
Catch up.
to cover all of the items on this month's agenda.
And we'll get notified about that,
Yes.
right, I assume? Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Our meetings are fun.
Appreciate you.
I have a development in my
Marathon.
district that's, it was approved in August of 19 before I took office. And it was approved after